Good evening. Thank you for being here in Exeter tonight, the cradle of democracy in New Hampshire. Thank you for your warm welcome. I can't tell you how proud and pleased I am to stand here today with Senator John Edwards. I know he's a little bit disappointed. His plans for tonight included watching some baseball later on. So I've got to change that up a little bit. Had to take care of that a little early. But still, very, very excited to be here. Senator Edwards, who I am firmly convinced not only should be, but will be the next President of the United States. There's two reasons that I believe that way. One is that he can win. And two is that winning is just beginning. He can do this job, and he should be the one to do this job. You're talking now about a man who is committed to restoring American prestige around the world, and more importantly, to restoring that covenant in America between all of us, between rich and poor, black, white, north, south, all of us together. Ladies and gentlemen, please, one more warm welcome for the man who's going to be the President of the entire United States, Senator John Edwards.
Very much, and thank all of you for coming. We've got other people making their way in now. Welcome. We're glad that. I think we got a few students here too. We're very glad that all of you are here, and I hope you'll ask some questions when we get to that place. I wanted to say a few things to begin with. First, send my wife Elizabeth's affection. She's doing great. I talked to her just before I came over here today, and I want to start. Let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk for a few minutes, take your questions for a while, and then I'll have just a couple of things to say at the very end. I saw this Ken Burns piece on PBS the other day on World War II. You know, he's a great documentarian, and I was really struck by some of the things that were included there. Because basically what it was doing was talking about the extraordinary accomplishments of Americans during that period of time. You know, going across the Atlantic Ocean, defeating Hitler and fascism, going across the Pacific Ocean, defeating the Japanese, building an extraordinarily big building, the Pentagon, in just over the course of a year. And then I was comparing that to what's happening in America today. And particularly if you're me, and you're going around not just talking to people, but actually listening to what they have to say, what you keep hearing rumblings of is a fear in America that, by the American people, that they may be the first generation, my generation, may be the first generation of Americans that don't give their children a better life than they have. That's the sense that you start to feel. And I think people feel an enormous responsibility about that. And this is, at least from my perspective, the great moral test of our generation. Because we must ensure that our children have a better life than we did. You know, 20 generations before us did. And we have a responsibility to do it. And I listen to the concern and fears that people have. And you think about it, the American people haven't changed. Not since World War II. I mean, we are still a strong, courageous, vibrant people who believe in doing what's just and fair. And speaking out when we see something that's an injustice. So American people haven't changed. The government, on the other hand, has. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Let's look at what's happening around the world and in America today. I mean, let's start with Iraq. You know, I'm going to talk about Iraq later. But if you look at what's happened in Iraq, our men and women in uniform have done everything they've been asked to do. They have been extraordinarily courageous in their service of their country. But the government can't get the lights on in Baghdad. If you look at what happened in New Orleans, I mean, the hurricane hits the Gulf Coast, right? And Americans volunteer. They go to New Orleans to help people. They take families into their homes. They make huge contributions because they care about their fellow Americans. But the government's a different story. We have thousands of people who don't have homes, no jobs, half the schools in New Orleans have not reopened. Same thing with September 11th. You know, over 6 years ago, September 11th happened. Many of you are like me. I have these vivid images in my head of firefighters and first responders going up into those buildings while people were trying to go down and out of those buildings. And too many of them lost their lives through their courage and heroism. But still, in New York today, at Ground Zero, it's basically a black hole. And the question is why? What's wrong with this picture? Why is there an extraordinary disconnect between the strength and goodness of the American people and the government? Part of it is incompetence. There's no question about that. But I believe it's not just incompetence. I think it's also, if we're being honest, it's the creeping effect of corruption. I believe there is corruption. Now what's happened, you have to be really careful about this. I'm going to talk about it more. But you have to be really careful, because what happens is we get so accustomed to it that we don't see anything wrong with it anymore. Honestly, that's exactly, and even good people get caught up in it. Look at, and this didn't start with George Bush. The Lord knows he's made it worse. But it did not start with George Bush, not in my opinion. I think it's been going up, building up for 20 or 25 years. And what are the examples of it? They go on forever. I mean, right now, we got men and women serving in uniform in Iraq. While we got a bunch of paid mercenaries roaming around the country, lawless, the best I can tell, working for Blackwater and people like that. You know, we've got men and women putting their lives on the line in Iraq, and politically connected people here at home making millions of dollars. We got billions of dollars of no-bid contracts going to Halliburton, and people like Halliburton. We've got CEOs of big companies in America who drive the companies into bankruptcy, but not themselves. They leave with billions of dollars in compensation, golden parachutes. What happens to the workers? What happens to the people who spent their lives working for that company? They lose their pensions. That's exactly right. They lose their pensions. We want to inspect containers coming into America to keep America safe, because people are worried about the possibility of a dirty bomb or something coming in. And who lobbies against inspecting containers? The biggest company in America, Walmart, lobbies against inspecting containers. And on top of that, we got trade laws and trade deals that cost America millions of jobs. And what do we get in return? Millions of dangerous Chinese toys. That's what we get in return. I mean, these things are not an accident. They are the direct result of the poison fruit of corruption.